Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. We're glad to have you all listening and back for our enjoyment.
For our enjoyment?
I mean, your enjoyment. One way or the other. As you can tell, we got my lovely wife.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
You do too.
Oh, it's me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Josh. And Elisa is sadly not here with us.
No, she's got some family stuff going on, and it's cold and flu season. It's going around.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, she couldn't be here. But we miss you, Squeakers.
Come back soon. But we do have two lovely guests with us. They are both from Broken Wings Paranormal. So to my right, we got
Steve.
And
Susie.
welcome.
Thank you.
So we have our good friends from Broken Wings Paranormal on because we went out to the Great Saltair together.
We did.
But that wasn't an original plan, was it?
It was not. We had another location lined up, but it fell through, unfortunately, as sometimes that happens.
It does. And unfortunately, it happened 24 hours before we were supposed to be at our investigation night.
It did.
So I want to give a nice, huge shout out to Saltair for letting us come in and investigate on such short notice.
Yeah, it was very nice.
And the security guard there, what was his name, Steve?
Oh, his name's Brandon.
All right. So thank you, Brandon, for letting us investigate on very short notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, because he really went out of his way to do it on the same day, which normally, as many of us know, you're not booking very many paranormal locations the day of.
Exactly.
Well,
It's usually weeks in advance.
What's interesting is this was the one night they didn't have anything going on.
Yeah, it just happened to fit in because they had no events.
Dang. We got lucky.
Did.
We did.
Definitely.
But it was a fun night. And
It was.
we had a good time. So let's get into the crazy history of the Saltair.
All right.
So the thing to first note is that what we call the Great Saltair is actually the Great Saltair number 3.
It is.
So there were actually 2 other Saltairs before that. So the first one opened in 1893. And that was actually built by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it opened on Memorial Day of 1893 and was dedicated on June 8th, 1893, which is kind of neat. I mean, that's a pretty old building at the time.
It is. Yeah.
But it was built on basically right over the Great Salt Lake. And it had a nice, beautiful pier, kind of those onion-shaped domes on it. And the whole thing was made out of wood, which is pretty important to remember that part.
It's also important to remember that back then there was actually water there.
Yes.
That's very true.
There was a lot of water there, actually.
Was
See
that
it?
the
I make one comment and he's finished.
I know.
was that first one? Was that the bathhouses when people would come and pay to go out there and the
And
domes
float.
they had out? That's where they would change out of their clothes,
I think so.
Yeah.
That
swim
first
in
one.
it, and then go back, change back into their clothes, and then leave.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So kind of the neat thing is like in the 1800s, there was this huge national interest for like hot springs and mineral baths and salt baths, all because they had this idea of the healing properties of bathing in this stuff. And it makes sense, right? Because like salt is a natural astringent.
Yep.
And so it's like you're cleaning yourself.
Oh, it's therapeutic and it's a lot of things.
We
Yeah.
just still do it with Epsom salt today.
We do.
Absolutely, yeah.
We just, I mean, if you tried to do it in the Great Salt Lake today, you'd just be covered in brine shrimp.
And dried to like a prune in about an hour.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a lot of fun, would it?
No.
In 1906, the church sells the resort to a bunch of private businessmen. They decided it's not worth their time for it, I guess. And that's where kind of the history kind of like moves forward into the craziness of things. They get into 1925 and we get the first fire of the Great Saltair. And the whole thing just burns to the ground.
Oh, wood.
Yeah.
So,
Wood and all of that. And the neat thing is that it was actually nicknamed the Coney Island of the West.
weren't they planning like to put some rides and stuff? And
There was supposed to be there was an amusement park, wasn't there?
Later. So yeah, there was the plans of doing some of those things. And then of course it burned, right? So there was a fire that started in the main pavilion, and then it just kind of spread through everything. So, and the first building had little to no fireproofing. So here you build this gigantic wood building on top of the water, and then you don't fireproof it. It's going to burn. And quick.
did they have really any sort of way to fireproof things back then?
I imagine in the 20s they did. Maybe not in 1893.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's what I'm saying. So how would they fireproof it necessarily?
They could have went back and renovated it.
just the thought of fireproofing something on water doesn't really come to mind.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that was their line of thinking as well.
Yeah.
We're right on the water.
We're good.
It'll be fine.
If it catches on fire, we'll just grab buckets. And
Yeah, just throw it
Start
on.
tossing them on there.
Do we know how that first fire started?
We don't. It just kind of started in the main pavilion and went to town. I'm guessing probably electrical, or someone left the candle out or something like that. Because you got to figure, the building now is 33 years old at this point in time. It's been sitting over a salt lake the entire time. It's hot as Hades in Utah in the summertime. You just dry out all the wood. I mean, it had to have been like kindling at that point in time. Probably not too much would have kicked that whole thing off. Kind of like the Great Chicago Fire. Kick over one lantern and the whole city burns to the ground.
Yeah.
Of course, they rebuilt it. They reopened it the following year, and they called it, the Great Saltair 2.
How original.
it's a sequel.
The sequel. So, and then it actually stayed open into the 50s, right? So this is where you get into this. They had bowling alleys. They had a roller coaster, a merry-go-round, a Ferris wheel. Like, they had quite a few different attractions on top of that thing.
Sounds like it. I would have went.
Right?
Yeah.
Be a lot of fun. To me, it reminds me of like the Santa Monica Pier.
Right.
Although having never been to it, just seen a bunch of videos on it. So maybe one day. If you guys have been, does it kind of sound like that?
Oh, the Santa Monica Pier?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I've been to the Santa Monica Pier.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of fun, honestly. This place is just wrought with like potential disaster, right? 1957, their big roller coaster, which was at the time the world's tallest roller coaster,
Wooden roller coaster.
and it collapsed. It was called the Giant Racer. There was a big windstorm, which it hits. We get these out here, right? Winds hit 75 miles an hour. Not uncommon for Utah.
No.
And the whole thing just fell over, collapsed.
That's scary.
I mean, hopefully nobody was on it at the time, because that'd be a lot worse.
That was my question. Was it running at the time?
Right? Well, and wouldn't there have been an article about it, had there been,
Yeah.
during like operating hours and such?
Oh, I'm sure, because like people would have died.
Well,
Yeah.
if there would have been high winds like that going on, I would assume they would have closed it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You would hope so.
Yeah. I mean, we do today. I don't
Yeah.
know, but,
So was the second Saltair built in the exact same spot as the first, or did they kind of reposition it somewhere else?
The second Saltair was built really close to the first one,
But not exactly.
but not
where-
exactly.
Okay.
So there actually were two people on the ride. They took the ride, then decided they wanted to go again, but then the winds kicked up to 75 miles an hour and they shut the ride down.
Ooh, okay.
My gosh, imagine like you just get off the ride and not that long after it just goes down. They said we got up and walked away, maybe about 50 feet. And then we heard this weird noise behind us, like snapping wood. We turned around and watched it coming apart. Wood breaking, going to the ground. We were in shock.
No kidding. Close call.
Close call.
very 50 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's close enough to get for the stuff to fall on you.
Yeah, exactly.
How tall was it again?
I didn't say. Just the tallest at the time. which I can imagine wasn't very tall, maybe, I don't know, 50, 75 feet. It doesn't look that tall from the pictures that I've seen. It doesn't look like it's not like the ones we have today that are, 250 feet tall.
Yeah,
So,
it doesn't look much taller than the building in the pictures.
no. So yeah, probably like 50 feet. But still, I mean,
For the time.
for the time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's 50 feet or 150 feet if it's going 30, 40 miles an hour back then, probably. That if it's coming off, your chances of survival are slim to none.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they're lucky regardless.
Well, you can't imagine. I mean, you got to imagine like there probably weren't that many safety features on roller coasters back then.
What, a lap bar?
I don't think they even had a lap bar.
No, they would have had a belt.
A belt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've ridden on some really old roller coasters that still have the belts cut off them.
Oh
Where
yeah,
they have the lap bar now and they have left the original belts. There's some old ones. There's one still out in Vegas at one of the really old roller coasters. You can't ride it anymore, but
Right.
you can go out there and see the cars and see the lap belt.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't remember which museum it's at. It's in one of the museums. It's a couple of the roller coaster cars.
no, that's really cool though.
It is cool.
So unfortunately, we get the Great Depression and World War II. And of course, the Great Salt Lake starts to recede. And so all of this ends up spelling horrible disaster for the Great Saltair. And in 1958, it ends up closing.
Sad.
It's very sad. But we're still, I mean, it's still there, right? Like it hasn't disappeared yet. So at least it's there.
Did they rebuild the roller coaster after it fell?
I doubt it because they closed the next year. I'm sure they would have just taken it apart because it takes a little while to build the coaster.
So after they lost the coaster, it kind of went downhill.
I think it was already going downhill to begin with. I mean, there was only 2 people on this roller coaster. Like you would expect that there would have been, at least
Full.
or close to full, right? Half full or 3/4 or something. Unfortunately, I think because at that point in time, the Great Depression was in full swing, and obviously the lake's been receding for quite a while. So I think they were just close to being done at that point in time. From when the first one was built and the second one was built, the water had receded so much that they had to build a train to take people or a trolley essentially from the Great Saltair building to the water and then drop them off. And then when they got done swimming in the water, they had to get back on the train and go back and change. So they can tell you like that's a lot of water loss for that time. Because if you look at the original Saltair pictures, they're floating right off right off the pier.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can tell the way the water even looks like it's choppy.
Yeah.
In some of the pictures that I've seen, like it looks like it's
got some height.
Yeah. Like some real gusto in that water right there.
Yeah. And unfortunately now if you stand where the original Saltair 1 and 2 are at today, it's just going to be dry
Sand.
ground. Unfortunately.
Salt, not sand.
Well, yeah. It's kind of barren desert looking. 1962, they actually shot the film, the horror movie Carnival Souls.
Mm-hmm.
And he paid a grand total of $50 to rent out the Saltair Pavilion to shoot the movie.
What year was that again?
62.
Oh, okay.
Because it was abandoned at the time, right? There's nobody there. I mean, this is like perfect, like ghost hunting
Yeah.
idea right there.
Talk about inflation.
Right.
But
That was 60 years ago. It's not that bad.
well, that's true. I mean, like when Disney opened, tickets were original
$12 when I was a kid.
Well, they were 25 cents. No, they were.
Oh, I don't know when they first opened. That's true. I don't know.
They were really cheap. They were like $1 or something like that.
It was $12 when I was growing up. So in the 80s, it was $12.
And now it's $150.
Yeah. So that's been less years since that. And that was only $50.
Yeah. But it wasn't an abandoned building. So I'm sure they're just like, whatever.
Free $50, right?
Yeah. If you die making the movie, you got insurance. We're good. And hopefully you burn it down so we get the insurance money, which ended up actually happening. 1970, in November, it burned down to the ground again.
Do we know the cause of this one?
Arson.
Oh.
They don't know who did it, but it was arson.
This was when it was abandoned.
Yep. So, I mean, it could have been vagrants. It could have been kids. It could have been, who knows, in the 1970s.
Okay, so now we got 2 that have been burnt down.
2 that have been burned down. In 1981, they built a new pavilion, the Saltair 3, which thankfully you guys can still see today because we don't have a Saltair 4.
But is it 3 or is it Saltair cubed?
It could be cubed, or we could just call it the third.
Saltair the third.
Saltair the third.
The Great Saltair the third. The final chapter.
Well, it is greater because it is lasting longer
Yeah,
than the
that's
other
true.
ones.
That's true.
And it is successful now.
Yeah, but not for what you would think it's successful for. But they even had their own issues in the Saltair. So they opened it. It was built in 1981, and they opened it in 1982. But before they opened it, it flooded.
Yep.
Flooded with salt water?
Salt water.
Mm-hmm.
It flooded from the Great Salt Lake. When that happened, the whole staircase had to be replaced and torn out. I mean, this is like you just build this whole brand new building. You spent all this money, and the first thing you got to do is replace the whole guts of the inside again.
It's almost like it's cursed, isn't it?
It kind of feels that way.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So the third one, did they build it closer to the water and then like the lake rose a little bit and that's what caused the flooding?
It was a little closer to the water, but since then, the water has receded even further.
You can almost walk to Antelope Island.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a long walk.
It's a long walk.
But it just shows you how much it's receded.
Yeah,
Yeah, but you wouldn't have to swim. You
No.
that's true.
could literally walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's over a mile walk to get to the water now from the building.
Jeez.
So they had to replace the whole staircase. The story goes, at least what we were told, is that there was an old hotel in Salt Lake County that was being torn down. I think it was the Hotel Utah, the Utah Hotel, or something along those names. I'm not entirely certain on that one. But that place was closed, and they're like, hey, we need a new staircase. So we're going to buy that one. And they bought the staircase and brought it and installed it in this new building. Now, it's reported that many people have died on this staircase when it was in the hotel. Now, it's hard to say what the actual answer to that is, but that's the reported rumors.
So when you walk in, that staircase is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the top,
Oh.
I haven't yet to see a clock or a guy named Jack standing
Yes.
there. So I'm not exactly sure.
If you watch the video, you'll see the staircase does kind of look like the Titanic one.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it does have a little bit of
does.
that.
Yes,
that-
it has that
Elegance.
flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of the same layout, just
Yeah.
more modern
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
the Titanic one. Yeah.
But yeah, it has that feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which gives it age. I mean, it shows you that if the stories are true, it is an old style staircase. I think the hotel is back from the 18 or the 1900s. So probably right around the time that the original Saltair was
Yeah,
built.
so the staircase outdates the building that stands today.
Right.
And then don't forget, we still have that one beam
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
in the back corner that
From
was
the original.
from the original that was recently returned to the building.
Which is weird that someone just had a random Saltair beam.
Yeah, but I don't think
They
it's
salvaged it and then
they-
kept it in a
some.
barn
Yeah,
or a shed.
yeah. Somebody had to salvage it for some reason, thinking it would have historical value. I don't know,
Yeah, it's a little weird.
but it's back. But
Yeah,
it is weird.
yeah, it's back in a back corner where most people
Strapped to the wall.
Yeah.
Strapped to the
to another beam.
to a concrete pillar that holds up the current building. Yes.
I licked it.
Oh no.
you lick.
Just, was it salty?
I was trying to tell what type of wood it was. Smelled it, nothing. Licked it a little bit, nothing. So I
Yeah.
still don't know what type of wood it was, but
old.
Old kind.
old
Very
enough.
old. Yeah.
Do you do a lot of practice with licking wood?
I was just gonna say, should we be talking about you licking wood?
I wonder if maybe it would make me feel closer to the original history of the building.
Right.
Yeah,
Maybe I get like a vision. Ooh.
You never know.
that would actually be kind of cool.
That'd
would be
neat.
cool.
If you-
But like
if
something
you-
out of a movie, right?
Yeah, but you don't want that to happen because then she'll just be randomly walking around licking things and nobody will understand why.
I'm a weirdo.
Just hold on, people. She's trying to get a vision.
Just no frozen poles.
No frozen
There you
balls.
go.
You know what? Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
don't need
triple
that.
dog dare ya.
So, and then the last thing to make note of in that building is that the roof of the building is actually salvaged as well, reportedly.
Okay.
So there was, we have a Air Force base here in Utah, and I guess they were getting rid of one of their hangars or redoing it, and so they bought the roof from the Air Force and installed it inside of Saltair.
Interesting. I never knew that.
So the whole building, like, at least parts of the building, like reclamation projects.
Yeah.
So there are reports of people seeing up on the second level there are people seeing soldiers walking around, possibly because of the hangar
Right. The
reference.
roof. Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Wow.
I know I didn't see anything like that up there, but I didn't hang out on the balcony very much.
Really
We didn't
weren't
have
staying,
cameras
and we couldn't go out to
there.
to the catwalk.
No.
I just looking at, I didn't even feel comfortable even putting a camera up there. It looked bad. He showed it to us, but
Yeah, just not a very safe.
Didn't look safe at all.
Looks sketchy.
So that's kind of the brief
History.
overview of the history of the place,
Building.
of the building, or of the buildings, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But what's very interesting about the area is it's kind of a death magnet.
It definitely has that reputation, I think.
Which is interesting because of the salt. People go there for healing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there's all this death.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that has a lot to do with because Magna, Utah 1 is not a very big city. And while the Saltair is listed as being part of Magna, Utah, it's not even close to the city of Magna. It's out in the middle of nothing. There's the one mine that's across the street from it that you can kind of see from the Saltair. But there's no lighting out there. I mean, it's just off of I-80.
It's pretty isolated.
There's nothing
Just-
out there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go down that road, there's nothing until you get to Tooele.
Yeah.
Think of that has a lot to do with it. So we're going to go over just a handful of the weird and sad things that have happened out there. So we're going to start with the inhuman aspect of it first. And this is actually pretty recent. Happened just a few years ago. So on March 1st, and I don't have the year, so you have to bear with me on that one. There's a wonderful dog named Dixie who was kidnapped from her owner's home by the owner's ex-boyfriend, who then proceeded to take the dog out by Saltair and set the dog on fire.
Jeez.
And the dog survived for a short period of time. And that's just awful. Absolutely awful. People should not be doing that by any means. That's just wrong.
On so many levels.
Yeah, so many levels.
Well, he's obviously wanted to hurt her.
Yeah, so he took it out on the dog.
He took it
Yeah.
out on that poor creature. Yeah.
Then we get into a man, a 28-year-old male, who decides to commit suicide by jumping off the overpass onto I-80, which is just heartbreaking in itself. And then there was a young lady who went to her first rave at Saltair. So this was not near Saltair. This was actually in the building. And she ended up dying of a drug overdose in the building.
I'm sure there's a lot of that went on.
Yeah, I found a few more articles of people dying or being hurt there. So one guy went to a rave there and took out a sharp object and stabbed 4 people and then ran off.
Must have been some good drugs at that party.
Right? Or
Must have
alcohol
been
or something.
Anything, yeah.
Or he was
That's-
just a psychopath.
I mean, that's crazy. 4 people.
That's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people.
You'd have to be pretty messed up.
Yeah.
To hurt one, let
Yeah,
alone
let
4,
alone
you
4.
know?
Yeah. But I think a lot of this starts adding into the environment inside this building. Bigger going on here in Utah. All right, so we're going to get into now kind of these 3 cases that really kind of show that there might be something else going on here in Utah. Kind of a little intriguing. So the first one is they find a body in a suitcase on I-80. It's a middle-aged woman. She's got long dark hair, a wrist tattoo, and has had a mastectomy. So they don't know who she was, but they just find her there. Now, at the time, they were actually looking for another woman who had been missing from Provo. So this 26-year-old was missing from Provo. They thought it might have been her, but instead it's just a different person found, dumped out there. Then shortly after that, they do find the gal that was missing from Provo.
And she ends up out there as well.
She ends up out there as well in a suitcase.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That's like, that's weird. And then we get into another body of someone found in a suitcase. And all of the women are of Hispanic origin, all have dark hair, and they're all found in suitcases. All along I-80, which is right next to Saltair.
So do we have any indication of how far apart these were? Or, I mean, are we talking months? Like just a handful? Or are we talking like years?
Years in some of the cases.
Interesting.
Months in a couple other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very strange that they're finding these bodies in the 80s there. Or not the 80s. This is actually just recently. So 2015 was the last one that was found.
Right. And in suitcases.
And in suitcases.
All female.
All Hispanic in origin.
All dark hair.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now they find another lady. Now this lady was found a while ago. She vanished in the 1970s, right? But she was found out there. And she was found assaulted, shot in the head, and stabbed. Or, I'm sorry, not shot in the head, but shot and stabbed. But she was found out there. Now, the interesting thing is she went disappearing in the 70s, which is roughly around the time that Saltair burned down. You got to wonder if there's any type of connection between the arsonist who did that and the murder.
How long was she missing
Before they found her?
before they found her?
Not long, actually. So in this year, so she went missing 1971, August 20th.
Hmm.
But she went missing from Salt Lake County. But she was found at the Saltair.
Hmm.
You wonder if the person who is responsible for her death put her out there because the place had burnt down. So nobody was really out there or going out there. Right.
And it had been abandoned for 20 years anyway.
So it's like, and because it's isolated and everything, it's like the perfect spot.
They still do it today, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's gonna? But really, who's gonna go out there? I mean, they have raves out there at the one today.
Yeah. Raves and concerts. Yeah.
And concerts, but for the most part, it's just
There's nothing else.
there's
there.
nothing
No.
else.
Yeah.
And it ain't hard to find out if they have something on their calendar tonight.
Exactly.
They do?
No, if they do.
Oh, if they do.
if they don't have anything
Yeah.
on their calendar, you're like, oh, well, there's your perfect dumping ground.
Nobody's gonna be out there.
Yeah, definitely now, right? Because
Yeah.
all that stuff's now public knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then, it would be a different situation unless it was closed down. Then you would know. Just absolutely, there ain't going to be nobody out there.
Well, yeah, it's in the 70s, right? Before the new one opened in in 82. So
Mhm.
you had 12 years
Right.
of nothing out there. Just probably a burned out husk of a building.
Right.
Now we lead into the last one. Now there's more deaths and more things that have happened in this area. We're just covering a handful of them. But a couple of years ago, there was another body found of a woman who was shot. And she ended up being found by a jogger out there, which, man, you're jogging in no man's land out there.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't.
No.
Jogging there was frequent. Like they had joggers that come all the time, but what was different with this one is she wasn't wearing athletic clothing.
Right.
Well, she wasn't necessarily a jogger. She was just found by a jogger. And they still haven't figured out who killed her. And this was over a year ago. I think she was found in 2020.
Wow.
Which I think, I mean, it kind of lends to it, right? Like, because it's so isolated out there and there's really nothing out there, if you dump a body...
No one's going to see you, really.
Right, exactly. And that kind of lends to the famous case, right, of Saltair Sally. And her body was dumped out there. And dismembered, and they just found not much left of her because the animals got to her. And because of that, they had a hard time figuring out who she was.
12 years, I think.
Yep. And it wasn't until they did DNA testing that they figured out her real name, which was Nicole
Bacoles?
Bacoles, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
We'll all murder that last name, but it's something like that.
But after 12 years, they finally found out who she is.
Yep. But her spirit was recognized as being one of the ghosts that was haunting Saltair.
Yeah, because no one knew her name, right? She was unidentified.
Yep.
But investigations, is that where the name Saltair Sally came from?
They kind of just dubbed it.
Yeah, just kind of what they called her.
Because, you could call her Jane Doe, but I think they just used the name Saltair, and then because that's where she was found, and then just...
Sally just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it just works. But her spirit was seen a lot at Saltair up until the point at which they identified her body. And they said once they identified who she was, that she didn't show up anymore. Now is what they claim. It's hard to say whether or not that's fully true or inaccurate.
Well, maybe you don't see her visually, but it doesn't mean that she's still not there.
But she was visibly seen there.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I find interesting is the report of the little boy that's seen in the bathrooms. Because I didn't see anything about a little boy dying there. Now, he could have died in the, early 19s. Could have drowned on the property.
Or that we know of, right? Because the lake, who knows? There could be bones.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Haven't seen the bottom of that lake.
No, and like you said, though, this is just a few instances.
These are
the ones we know of. Well,
how
many countless ones don't we know of?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing can be... you would need a cinder block, more than one cinder block to weigh something down in the Salt Lake because everything will float.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the salt level is 3 to 5 times more salt than the ocean.
Yeah, so nothing's going to sink.
No, nothing.
And there's
sinks.
not enough water in there anymore to really do anything with. But even still, back in when there was water, say Saltair, the first generation, there could have been anything. People could have drowned there. You're not historically. You're probably not going to find that.
No, probably not. And why would you want to make note of that, right?
Right, exactly.
Because it's bad for business.
Exactly.
Come float in our Great Salt Lake next to the body of a little boy who drowned.
Well, and it could even just be buried, right? Because back then, if you think now, you have the roads, the frontage road, the freeway that goes through. Picture there not being anything for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the possibility that it could be related to John Baptiste too, which he was a grave robber.
Mm-hmm.
He robbed from over 200 graves.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That anybody
In Utah?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was very common practice with the people that were buried to be buried in clothes and nice jewelry and stuff, because the belief was when they're resurrected, they come back with the clothes and the stuff that they have.
things.
So they bury them with the nice things. Well, John Baptiste, being a gravedigger, he knew this, and so he started robbing graves. So and that's a very loose possibility that it's associated to that, but there's always some strange occurrence that he could be associated
You
to that too.
never know.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into our investigation night.
Okay.
So we kind of all split up. In fact, Jamie and Elisa went into one green room. I ended up going into another one. And then where did you guys end up going?
Well, before
VIP room.
we split up, when we were doing the walkthrough,
Oh, yes.
what room were we in? We were doing the tour, and it was one of the back rooms on the first level.
Yeah, it was one of the green rooms on the first level. One of the newer ones. The one that they actually just finished.
Oh, on the right-hand
With
side.
the black countertop on the... Yes. I think it was on... Yes.
So that's the room that Jamie and Elisa went into first.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened in there for you guys?
That's the one where
Steve and I walked
we walked
into
in. It was like something rushed us.
like a black
like
mass
right out of the mirror
in the corner.
Like you could when you walked in and turned, it just came right at us.
Whoa.
We were frozen. We were like, "Oh my gosh,
But
what was that?"
This is when Brandon was walking us around, still telling us what these rooms were.
Right.
And he did not come in with us. He just pointed it out, and he stated to the fact, he said, and for some reason, and it was seconds before we walked in, and for some reason, this room is 10 degrees colder than every other room on the first floor.
Yep.
For no reason. And we walked in, and it was like you could feel it.
Oh,
Just
it
like
was
go right through you. It
heavy.
just like it was dark in that corner where that mirror was, and it was heavy, and it was just like it just came right at you when you walked in. And it was noticeably colder in that room. No question.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That was just walking through the place. We
Yeah.
didn't even have cameras or equipment
Yeah, we
out. It
weren't-
would have been awesome if we got that.
But yeah, we weren't B-rolling or anything because
No, you're just going on the tour.
We were learning about the place and
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Well, because you were in there with Elisa, right? So did it feel noticeably colder in there than
It
everywhere
was.
else?
I have to say it was. It was cold in there.
Well, that's interesting.
It is. Lisa and I really didn't get a whole lot in there. Not really. Because, I mean, most of the way through us being in there, you came and joined us.
That's true.
And I think we got one or two hits off the Ovulus and whatnot. But really, we didn't end up with anything from there.
Really quiet.
Yeah, it was pretty quiet.
I think whatever it is moves.
And it's possible. I mean, we did save that room for last
Mhm.
because we the kind of way you were rotating going up, we were rotating going, around this way.
Yeah.
So we saved that room specifically for last
Oh, that makes sense.
because we knew that it felt weird going in and wanted to see what it felt like at the end of the night
Yeah.
Right.
rather than doing it somewhere in the middle. And then, I don't know. I like to save kind of like the best for last, you could call it, I guess.
Totally
Yeah.
get it.
Well, because like when we went through on our tour, because we took two separate tours essentially, because we were there a little bit before you guys,
Mhm.
and I remember it feeling different in that room too
Mhm.
when we first went in there.
Yeah.
But when I joined you guys, it felt the same, or it didn't feel the same. It felt different.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It didn't feel like anything was really happening in there once we went in to actually investigate.
And who knows, when we initially walked in,
We probably spooked it, or
could
it
have
was like,
spooked
"I'm
it.
out of here."
Could have been like,
peace.
I'm going over here to this room. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because it left. It was
Mhm.
in that room, and it just
And
gone.
oddly, throughout the entire night, everything was calm, cool, collective. Just your normal investigation till we went back to that room at the end of the night.
it was. They were saying some
And
very not nice
it
things.
was- They knew their curses, that's for sure.
as we've found in that, I have heard stories of other people getting some crazy stuff in that building as well.
Yeah, not
Not
surprising.
in that area, but up in the VIP room area. But it's not surprising too, if you think about it, right? If the place is being used for raves, it's being used for concerts and stuff like that.
You have drugs, alcohol,
Yep.
There's
probably sex
all sorts
all
of
of it
stuff going on.
going on. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and for those of you that don't know, the green rooms, that's where the bands hang out when they're not on stage, where they're getting ready to go on stage or in between sets. That's where they're going to hang out.
Mhm.
I mean, that's sort of kind of their quiet time or their peaceful time or whatever. So,
It's essentially their own personal VIP areas.
yeah. So they're going to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah,
in
there's
those.
couches and all those, and big drink coolers. And,
I would not take a UV light into one of those.
No.
Heck no.
Nope,
nope.
definitely not. Black light out of the question. So, but you guys went up to the VIP room.
That's where we started.
So how did that go?
Went good. We did have, because again, it was cold. The heaters are running in the place. Very loud, big blower fan heaters in the building. 4 very large.
Kind of what you would find in like a giant warehouse or like like the old automotive shops. They're just
Industrial size.
Industrial size.
yeah, industrial size propane heaters.
Yep. And it made it a little difficult to do a standard EVP. I mean, we tried anyway. Didn't have a whole lot of success with that, but with the spirit box and stuff, we got some really interesting responses up there too. We were in there for a long time, actually. We spent an hour and a half because we were getting good information. We did get tripwire went off once too while we were doing our EVP session, which was pretty interesting because it was right when I was going down to try and debunk something. We got footsteps on EVP, and we have multiple recorders running. Only one recorder. Now, granted, we use same kind of recorders. Both recorders were exact same model, used exactly the same way, within 6 feet of each other, and we had different results. The one closest to the back stairwell heard footsteps. The one sitting on the countertop, 6 feet in front of the stairwell, did not get the footsteps.
Interesting. So something was coming up or down the stairs. Don't know which way, right?
And that's where it gets weird because we don't know which way. But I feel it was coming up, and here's why. Because when we concluded and we heard the footsteps, we did live listen. We listened back.
Yep.
Sorry, not live listen, but we do instant playback. We heard the footsteps on the recorder. Actually sounded like heartbeats, which we do mention in the video. It sounded like heartbeats because it did, because you would hear boom, 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 boom. But what I believe it was the way they were not doing one step like this. They were steps, step top, step top. That's the way it sounds in the video as well as on the recorder. Just sounded that way. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to see what that was. So at the end, we shut everything down. And I'm like, I'm going to go down the stairs and walk up. I told Erica to record me to see if that's what it was.
Yeah.
So I walk down the stairs. Soon as I get to the top, right where I'm going to step down, tripwire goes off.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think what happened was when I came towards the stairs to walk down, he's like, I'm out of here. And he
I'm going this way.
He went like and set off the tripwire. And then I walked down the stairs and then I said I was coming up, and I come up the stairs. We do the playback on that. The sound is identical. No question. Even the same volume. Obviously, I'm a little heavier because I was intentionally walking on the steps.
Right.
But the tone, same frequency. So it was like, because they're wooden stairs.
Yeah.
The frequency of the sound on the spectrum was the same.
Oh, that's
Wow.
cool.
Makes you wonder if the spirit had an injury in life. You know, like sometimes when you've hurt your leg or whatever.
Like a hobble.
And you got to just do like one foot up on the stair and the next one up.
That's the way it sounds.
Yeah.
Because it goes
like a quick step.
Yeah.
like that.
Or
Like-
a kid.
Not trying to put
Could have been a
pressure
young.
on
It could have been a young kid.
Because if you look at the way young kids walk upstairs, right? They go step, 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 step,
Yeah.
step as they go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the length, the stride to go up.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We did get some ovulus hits.
Yep. We do it. Yep. She definitely saw, and anybody that's in this business knows you don't sit there and move the ovulus around like this. It's not a good idea, right?
Because you're
No.
going to get
Because you're going
responses.
to get responses.
That's right.
This is the most steady person I know on the planet. So she's literally holding it for, I don't know, 20 minutes in the same position, just like this. Nothing. All of a sudden, 3 words come through. Just that quick. And I don't remember what the words were
I don't
exactly,
either.
but they did become relevant.
It's in the video.
Yeah. Sorry. We're going to
No,
keep
you're
mentioning
good.
the video.
No,
but-
and which is fine, because at the end of this episode, we
Tell you
will
where to
reference.
go.
Yeah, we'll tell you where to find this video.
Exactly.
We got enough to not remember all of it.
Yes, and that's what made Saltair, especially in the VIP room. Now I could tell you everything that happened everywhere else. The VIP room, on the other hand, because we were getting such great responses through multiple devices, it's hard to remember everything in order that took place. But yeah, those footsteps will stay with us for sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's pretty neat.
I don't think we heard any of that when we were in there.
No, I don't think so.
But we were, so
Oh, the cookie.
that's true.
Yeah, that was at the end of the night.
That was at the end of the night.
Yeah, they
Okay.
did it last. Yeah,
Yeah, we
they
did that
the
one
VIP
last. But after I met up with Elisa and Jamie, we went back to what's called the Manson room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's called the Manson room because that was Marilyn Manson's green room.
Yes.
And, a lot of artists have weird requests for their rooms, right? Like, I only want yellow M&Ms.
Yep.
Or I can only drink Evian water, right? Or I'm only going to drink this beer. Well, Manson's request was, I want the room entirely black.
And didn't he want the mirrors covered too?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted the mirrors covered.
Yeah.
So they went through all of this trouble and covered all of the walls in this black material. It's black material. And so they did all of this work, got it all blacked out for him. And they're like, that was a lot of work. We're just going to leave it.
Yeah, they left it up. Yeah.
So that room now has the dubious name of being the Marilyn Manson room, which in itself is ominous in that way. But the interesting thing is that there's this awful hum when the doors open.
Yeah, just outside the one door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What these hums are coming from, they're basically called magnetos, right? What they are is they are power enhancers and stabilizers. So when the energy is coming in from the power lines into this building, it's kind of unstable because of how rural they are. And so they go into basically these giant power boxes that boost the energy and stabilize it out. This thing emits crazy EMF.
In the hundreds.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're next to it. I didn't have a millimeter at the time. I just had K2.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
In the one room, not in the Manson room, but in the room we were in,
Which is next to the
which
Manson
is
room.
next to the Mansion room, and that box is right on the other side of the wall.
Yep.
If you set the millimeter on the back, it was through the wall was still measuring 92.4
Dang.
Which
through the wall.
is excruciatingly high because it only takes 10 milligauss of EMF to negatively affect the human body.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what's crazy is you got people, band members and stuff like that, that stand next to this box in between sets,
Hanging out.
hanging out. Like, this thing is putting off so much energy that they recommend you not have a pacemaker next to it because it will interfere with the pacemaker.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what I kind of liken that piece of device to is to like a big EMF pump.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Well, that's all an EM pump is, right?
Right, exactly.
It's putting out an electromagnetic frequency to boost what energy may already be there.
Yeah.
Isn't that where the mirror is on the wall of that box? That they have the activity come through that mirror? I thought
It's in line with
It's
it.
in line with it.
It's
but
in line with it.
It's not directly on the other side. It's more kind of across on the other end of that wall. Yes.
But what you do actually have happening in there is there's a mirror in the Manson room and there's a mirror in what's called the dining hall area, kind of.
Yeah.
Those mirrors face each other,
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
which if you have two mirrors facing each other,
It's a portal.
it's a portal.
Yep.
Or the potential to become
Potential,
a portal.
right.
But if you have two mirrors facing each other and 100 milligauss of EMF pumping through the area, I would be willing to bet there's a portal.
But man, I'm telling you, the way I think about it is, like when we were up in the VIP room, and you mentioned it yourself, because we got the same responses you got. Kept getting 8.
Yep.
And there was 8 mirrors in the VIP room.
How many are with us? 8.
Yeah, and same thing we were asking, same thing you were asking.
Yeah.
We were getting the same thing. two totally different times. But isn't it possible that every single mirror in that place is linked just because of the amount of EMF in the air?
It's entirely possible in that aspect too, but also the same aspect, right? Like there's this theory that mirrors become portals because of the way we look into mirrors, right? It can be a very vain avenue of when we're staring at a mirror, right? These mirrors are all in green rooms. These mirrors are all in VIP rooms. What are people doing with these mirrors? Staring into them in a very vain, in a very arrogant way. It's very possible that just that type of energy in himself is enough to link them together.
Oh, sure.
But then, then you get the EMF in there, and it's just off the charts.
Yeah, because like I said, and that was through the wall. I'd hate to take an EMF meter, it'd probably blow it off the charts if you walked over by it.
Yeah.
I mean, you pegged a K2 red, which isn't necessarily
That's
hard
30.
to do. Yeah. But, I set the EMF on the back of the couch. It said 92.4, and I'm like, that's enough.
Yeah. And it takes, if you're over 10, you can already suffer from hallucinations.
Sure.
The feelings of
Headache, feeling sick, all those things.
feeling of being watched, all of those
dizzy,
things, right?
Yeah.
Which can add to the paranormal claims
Yeah, it's not
of the area. So
it's not necessarily instantaneous though. So don't get me wrong. You could handle 10 EMF for. It's not like it's going to just instantly hit you, but when it's 100,
it probably doesn't
and
take
you felt
long.
it before, right? She's felt it before
In the solitary confinement
solitary
in
confinement in
at the
Idaho,
state penitentiary.
where she was up to 104 in the room she was in.
That's a lot.
And that
Yeah.
was literally sitting there floating at over 100 in a place that there isn't electricity for
It's intense.
for
Okay,
a
that's a
while.
little different.
Yeah, so but upstairs, I mean, but that's the same kind of thing because she didn't necessarily know it right at that second. She could feel something,
Right.
but if you're in that for a constant amount of time,
Hours, you're going to, one, it can have really negative effects, but you should be able to, you feel it. When you walk next to that thing, you feel differently.
staticky because you can feel the energy coming off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how much is this electricity and how much of it is paranormal?
Well, it's
That-
enhancing the paranormal.
Yeah. And I think that's where we get into if you're seeing things floating around, that can be challenging, right? Because it could be hallucination. It could be paranormal. But the beautiful thing is cameras don't lie, right?
Cameras
So
absolutely do not lie.
if you catch it on camera, then it's not you hallucinating.
Yeah, because the camera.
I'm just so amazed with that shadow that you got. That shadow is incredible.
Well, when we talk about that, because that is in this area, it actually happened in what we would call the dining hall area. So there's one section where there's a big, long table with a bunch of chairs sitting at it. So this is where the band would sit down and eat together, or the roadies or whatever, right? And then the room completely adjacent to it is more of I would say it's the serving area.
Yeah,
right?
it is the serving area.
We had set up a static cam pointing at the mirror and kind of the doorway. The reason why is we heard some claims that when people would take pictures of this mirror, they would get figures and things in their pictures. So we were like, hey, let's put up a static camera on that side. So Steve's group decides to go into the dining hall, and they set up their cameras, one of them pointing into the seating area for food, kind of at the other camera, sort of.
Well, it was pretty much
Yeah.
pointed directly at it.
And they were doing their investigation, and then that's when Steve sees what?
What and the weird thing is in the video, and I think the way that I perceived it, because I was staring into darkness. Now, even though in the video, obviously, we're using
It
night
looks like
vision
light,
cameras, it
but
looks
you
like
can't
it's
see that
yeah,
in real
exactly.
life.
Yeah,
So when we're standing in the room, I'm looking into a dark doorway.
right.
And I see something cross the doorway, and I immediately react to it because but in my sight, looking directly at it, it looked like it was just beyond the doorway.
Right.
When actually, because I could see your camera's infrared light on the other side of the room, which is all I could see, and they're not bright, right? I mean, they're just barely purple. You can kind of see them off in the distance.
Yeah.
So it looked like it was closer than it actually was, when actually, and you can see it in the video, it's completely behind your camera.
Right.
So I see this white mist go in front of the doorway. What I was actually seeing was white mist all the way on the other side of the dining room,
Further back.
crossing our path.
Right.
Crossing
Behind the camera.
behind your camera.
Which would put you about, what, 15, 20
15,
feet?
20 feet, yeah.
Yeah. Which in darkness is it's hard to perceive depth in almost total blackness.
Well, sure. That's why it looked like it was so close to the door.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, otherwise I wouldn't have saw it. Because I was about about 5 feet from the door maybe when I looked over.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was right there. But it's big. It's not. It's no small.
Right.
Judging
It
by
looks tall.
yeah,
Or at least
judging
high.
6.5 feet. Somewhere around 6'4", 6'5", because
That's big.
You can see the shoulders.
because you can see the shoulders are well above your camera height, which I probably around 48 to 52 inches. I would say on that tripod.
Yeah, about that. Let's go with that.
So shoulder height was well above your camera.
Yeah.
So it had to be 6'6.5", 6'4", 6'5", something like that.
That's really tall.
Really tall.
I wish it was in front of your camera so we could have gone
Yeah, that
So
was
do we.
so nice.
Yeah, that would have been
Yeah,
cool.
that would have been awesome.
Because that would have been obviously the coup de grace in that avenue, right? To catch an apparition moving in between two cameras
Yeah.
would
That would have been
definitely
But
be phenomenal.
But I've proved it before where you can you can have two cameras, one pointing 45 degrees south and the other one pointing 45 degrees north, both at the exact same window,
Yeah.
and something show up in that window, but only get caught on one camera,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which makes all of this paranormal. Like, because it's unexplainable. It
It's
doesn't
completely unexplainable.
Yeah, because we've had an instance where I was walking and I had two cameras and I had one camera in each
About
hand.
a foot apart.
About a foot apart. And I'm walking down and I catch an EVP in the left one, an EVP in the right one, then an EVP in the left one. They don't show up on either other. They don't show up on the other ones.
Yeah.
And there was like two different conversations going on,
It's so intriguing.
It is.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, really.
which I feel adds to validity of the claims, because it's like, look, if I have two devices in the same spot and one picks up something and the other one doesn't, that's showing you that for whatever reason, this stuff is selective in some strange way.
But it may not be, and it's not necessarily that they're selective. Is it they're selecting which microphone to talk into, or are they just melding with the frequency of that particular microphone at that time?
That's a great question.
Well, but then I would argue, though, if everything is the same, if you're using the same exact pieces of equipment, the frequency should be operating at the same time, at the same frequency levels.
I agree that it should. It should.
But it also goes to show how quickly energy can shift. And we don't know this energy or the level that it stands.
Right.
And so to have it here and not here in such that the short amount of space in between the two is like, what is it that's causing this shift to occur here and not here?
Yeah. It's all hard to say how any of this
Exactly, and that's why I stand by my rule of you can't have too many cameras.
We just need more cameramen.
We just need more people to hold them.
works. Yeah. That's called tripods.
Yes, well, we have.
Get the straps.
Yeah, it's terrible when every time you buy a nice, expensive, or even cheap camera, if you're buying cheap cameras, like a lot of our cameras are cheap cameras. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not going to take a $4,600 Canon. It's just not going to show up at Saltair in pitch black. But if you have all the cameras bad, though, every time you buy a camera, you got to buy a tripod.
Yeah. That's true.
Which does help.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can stick them in places and
Just-
let them sit.
They're great to have. I mean,
Well, and the part I like about having the extra cameras and stuff around is that it's going to catch something, especially if you have them like, at times we've had them facing opposite directions in the room, like covering two separate doors, because you can always look at one, but you can't look at the other one.
absolutely.
So it gives you that opportunity to see what you're not paying attention to. What I have found most interesting is when you leave one in a room and then you get something and no one's in the room.
That's always fun.
All right. So back to the rest of Saltair. So we ended up finishing the night up in the VIP room.
Well, before we went up there, before we headed up there, remember we all went in the women's restroom downstairs.
No, that's a lie. Josh didn't go.
I went in
Well,
there.
he went in there.
He went in there.
He put the camera down, then he left.
He left.
I
and
did.
it was Elisa and I in there.
Yeah,
I did. I left. I needed a drink, and I went back to base camp to get a drink.
That was a long ass drink.
It was lots of drinks. Many drinks.
It had to have been.
Well, I ended up having a conversation with the security guard, Brandon, when I was in there. And that's when he was telling me about the dog
Yeah.
and those things. And so it was a short conversation and a quick drink and a cookie refill.
Ah, yes.
I wonder if
Cookie
maybe
refill.
you would have riled up the spirits in the bathroom for having male energy in there.
Always possible.
It's always possible. But we did catch something absolutely crazy on camera in that room.
Yeah.
So we catch, and you'll see it on the video from Broken Wings, but there's this light anomaly that originates from under a closed bathroom stall door. And then it goes up in the air and around the room and kind of changes directions 4 times. And before it goes at the camera and then back underneath the camera and away.
Yeah.
One, the crazy thing is, and I left it in the video, is Elisa, who was, it actually went directly over
Over her head.
Over her head, yeah. Kind of
So-
like around, over and around.
The interesting thing is when Jamie and Elisa were in there, and again, I left this in the video because I thought it was interesting. The stall that it came out of is oddly enough the stall that Elisa walked into
Mm-hmm.
right before you guys left. She chose no other stall
But
out
that
of
one.
there's 20 stalls in
Yeah.
that place, and she just happens to pick the one stall to walk into. Now, granted, nothing happened while she was in there,
Right.
but right before they left, Elisa walked into that stall, almost as if drawn to that stall for some reason. I'm not saying she was, obviously, but it was weird coincidence that she just happened to choose that stall.
That very
That
stall.
That is a weird coincidence.
And that's why I
It
left
is.
it in there. I'm like, I wonder if anybody else will pick up on that. Nobody else has said anything yet to me about why was Elisa in there? Like, was she already in there? You know, had she been in there before? But no, I mean, they were just standing there having a normal conversation, trying to contact spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the light anomaly, and then Elisa goes in that stall and they leave.
Yeah.
Jamie, do you remember how you felt at that time?
Honestly, I felt nothing in there. And neither Elisa wasn't picking up on anything either.
And
Like we had heard about the little boy in
Yeah.
there and how he likes to kind of play games or little pranks or whatever. And so we were trying to communicate with him or, and we just weren't getting a whole lot. Because on a few occasions, Elisa
or
was
so you
like,
thought you weren't getting a
exactly.
lot.
We
Well-
thought we weren't getting a lot of anything.
And it was tough too, because like you walk in there and it's light, which that doesn't mean anything about catching the paranormal, right? Because obviously we caught this light anomaly in the light.
Which has to be meaning that light anomaly had to have as much light as the fluorescent lighting
Right.
Mhm.
that was on in that room. It had to be as bright as that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing to note about this light anomaly is most people, when you see light anomalies, right, they're orbs, right? They're a solid round circle, usually self-emitting light that moves around, right?
Mhm.
This was not that. This had weird jagged edges. It was irregular in shape.
Mhm. It
And-
changed shape and changed size.
Like wispy?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was kind of wispy, and it wasn't very big,
Mm-mm.
right?
It
So
got bigger at the end.
maybe, and that might be just because it was closer to the camera.
Yeah, but it was pretty consistent until it went down. And when it went down, it kind of shot straight down, but it had changed shape right before it made that big turn to go down.
Right. And it probably,
I mean, I'm not saying
I'd
it
say
isn't.
baseball size
Yeah.
in size, right? Just because you're looking at perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's very small on the screen, but it's probably about the size of a baseball,
Mm-hmm.
which both Jamie and Elisa didn't see it as it's moving around the room,
No.
but catching it in the daylight, which is neat, right? The other part that was annoying about the room is that because we're here in the winter and this is a rural location, in order for the pipes not to freeze, you kind of got to leave water on.
Yep.
So every bathroom in the entire building had at least one sink running, and we're not allowed to turn them off.
Well, there were several in that bathroom that were running.
So if you're trying to investigate in the quiet, so you can hear things moving and you can hear noises and stuff like that, and all you hear is the sound of running water, either you're going to want to have to go to the bathroom or you're just going to run away.
That's hard because it kind of restricts our level of investigating that we can do.
Right. It's more of an annoyance for the living, obviously, in that avenue, and not the dead. But it just becomes a challenge, and so they obviously didn't stay very long because we left, or they left. The part that I found funny is I walk back into the bathroom and I see nobody. Right?
We just left.
And
Left the camera there.
and they left the camera there.
Yeah.
And so what I'm thinking of is when I walk in there and there's nobody there, right? I am thinking that they are waiting to jump out at me because that's what they did in Wyoming. So I'm like, you'll see it, you can see it on the camera, on the footage that probably nobody will see. But I'm looking under stalls.
Oh, that could have been in the bloopers.
Yeah, he was.
And I'm like, where are people? Why is
Where'd you
nobody
go?
here? And so I'm like, they left me.
You
Where
took
did they
an
go?
awful long time for that drink.
Yeah, but the other part of the video that got left on the cutting room floor was him trying to get to the VIP room. He walked into...
Oh, no, I wasn't. I walked. So they left me, and I'm like, where did they go? I didn't know where they went. So I'm like, fine, they left me. I'm going to go do my own thing. And so I'm walking around up on the second floor, kind of like getting a feel for things.
Feel for it, yeah.
Sure you were.
And then I get this text message. I check my phone, and they're like, we're in the VIP room. I'm like, oh, okay. So I walk into the VIP room.
Yeah.
But I was like, they left me. What the hell?
That'll teach you.
Yeah, they weren't in there very long, though. I mean...
8 minutes, 9 minutes.
Oh, yeah. If you're not feeling anything, I mean...
Yeah, and Elisa wasn't feeling nothing either.
Yeah.
And so she's like, are you ready to go? Should we move on?
Yeah, she was one... Elisa was one ready to bail. She's like,
A few times.
I think I've had enough. Yeah, a couple times.
Now, I would like to be able to go back and investigate better in the bathrooms because I would like to prove the claim of the little boy. Now, on the main floor, there's basically the men's and the women's restroom, and they're basically butted up against each other. So there's just the room that the boy goes in both bathrooms.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to go back and try to investigate and see if we can get anything. But with the running water and all of that, it gets to be more annoyance than
And it could be
anything.
annoyance to the kid, too.
It could be.
Well, water is also energy.
It is. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
But it's not that far from a second Magneto.
right.
So
The boy is a mystery. And I am curious. Who is the boy? Is it a boy? Why is it there? What information can we find out about him?
exactly. And that's the only thing is that they have the claims. They've had sightings of the boy. People have reported seeing the boy there, but they haven't. Obviously, the people that are getting that aren't investigators, so they're not actually trying to get the information out. Just imagine being there at a party or a rave or a concert, and you're in the women's restroom, and now there's a little boy running around, and you're like, dude, it's 10 o'clock at night. This is a 21 and older event.
Where's your mom?
Why are you here?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we ended up finishing the night up in the VIP room after we spent some time in the bathroom. And that was, I don't know, for us, that was the best evidence we got there too. Because we ran 2 portal sessions up there and a dowsing rod session.
An SB7 session for a very short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, we ran that through the portal.
Yeah, but you still got a couple responses on the SB7.
We did. And that's when we had all 5 of us in there from our group. So we had Stacy, Karina, Elisa, Jamie, and myself were in there.
Stacey Stacy and Karina didn't stay very long, though.
No, just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, about the length of the SB7 session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
a few minutes
they're
before
like,
that.
we're going to bail. It's like, all right, cool. We'll shut this down.
Yeah, I actually debunked a few things that I thought that I had. I thought I had an EVP on your camera.
Yeah.
It was him in the room behind, outside that room in the next one, because I heard the audio on another camera.
Oh, you're like, oh, yep.
Yep, that was him.
Which also bends to the adage, you can't have enough cameras.
That's right.
Yeah. It makes debunking a lot easier.
It does.
It does. Because if you only have one camera facing one direction and no one's in frame, it's really hard to tell what's going on because you
Exactly.
can't prove that it's not somebody
Right.
speaking.
Right.
But I think the part that I like the most there is we did this dowsing rod session there. And
In the VIP room?
in the VIP room.
Yes.
And then so Elisa was doing the dowsing rod session at the time, and I just came back with cookies.
Mm-hmm.
So Jamie made, and I'll say this, some of the best cookies
Hands down.
that pretty much anyone's had there.
Oh, it's the best cookies that have ever been eaten in Saltair.
That seems more plausible.
That's
than the
definitely
other
more
way.
plausible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everybody was enjoying cookies. And so I went back and got some cookies because Elisa and Jamie wanted cookies, and Jamie was hitting a low. But she asked the spirit if he would like a cookie.
Yeah, I actually held one up. And I said, I know you can't eat it
Do
or
you-
take it, but can you smell it?
And the rods answered yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, quickly.
quickly.
As soon as you offered it a cookie, the rods went from moving slowly to just like straight to an X. Like,
Yeah.
right now.
But what's funny about that is because I mentioned that too. It's like, wow, they just want to right there. And then you see this light anomaly shoot out of the cookie
Yes.
and shoot across the screen.
Yes.
And it's
It's-
not like her cookie was in her lap, like she was holding the cookie
Up.
Yeah.
and out.
Yeah.
And so you can't really shoot out of anything because
Yeah.
nothing else is in that area.
Yeah, it
that's
was-
pretty cool.
It was weird. But I got to say this, though. The spirit says they can obviously smell the cookie, right?
They said they could.
They said they could.
Mm-hmm.
How awful would that be?
Like torture, I think.
Because like, you can't eat. And
No
maybe you
taste
don't.
buds.
Yeah, no taste buds and no way to eat, right? So if you crave the food from when you were alive and you can smell the food from when you were alive, that is like got to be a form of torture.
Oh, yeah. You have those memories, right?
Yeah.
Of eating cookies or your favorite meal
Or sleeping.
or, sleep,
sleeping.
anything, right?
Now, as mentioned, and I think you might have said it.
I asked the question.
Yeah.
'Cause-
But do you really miss sleep if you don't have to sleep? I mean, it's
Wait, what was the question that you asked?
Do you sleep? So we were talking at one point in time. We were wondering because we were talking about eating, right? And obviously spirits don't eat anymore. And I was like, man, I wonder if spirits sleep. Do ghosts sleep? And so I'm like, on our next investigation, I'm going to make sure I ask that question. And so I did. And that's why the question came up. It's like, do you sleep? We have to sleep, right? It's a restorative process for our bodies so that we can continue on. So that's why we are forced to sleep. But, you got to wonder if spirits are eternal in that avenue. Do they sleep?
I've asked that question so many times, and I don't think I got a response. Maybe not immediately, but one response I did get to the no sleep was no, we don't.
Yeah.
they got the same response.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's interesting though, because it's something it's something you don't think about.
Mm-mm.
I think it's all stuff tied to our physical bodies.
Yeah.
Because as a spirit, you don't have one, so you don't
Yeah.
have the physical need to do it.
Yeah, but what's the desire? They may not have a desire to do. They may. What do they desire? They're really.
See, that's, and that will be the next set of questions I try to
Cookies?
ask.
Cookies.
I mean, they'll
Cookies.
say they miss cookies, right? They miss that, but
What is it that they desire? What do they crave?
yeah,
Or do they crave anything?
Yeah, or is it do they just crave either? Maybe they just crave attention. Maybe
Acknowledgement.
acknowledgement, and,
Right.
And they don't have the energy to let us know necessarily that they're there. you get that one brave soul or that one spirit that just happened to walk in front of my camera.
Yeah.
Right.
The only one strong enough in the whole building.
Are
To-
telling us to get the
Yeah,
out.
and he's
right.
telling us to,
To leave.
to roll out, and everybody else was being quite kind. It's weird. And the energy shifts in there, and I think it does move in that building because you're finishing up in a VIP room while we're finishing up in the coldest room in the building.
Right. And that's when you guys walked in and what, immediately the portal says, get out.
Yeah, I turn on the portal. The first thing we get is get out. Don't even ask a question. I mean, I flip the switch and it says, get out. And then it
not
says,
nicely.
yeah. And then it says, not welcome.
Wow.
So it did not like you being in
It
its
did
space.
not like us being in there.
That room did feel weird too.
Yes. And it was so
everyone
cold.
wanted to leave.
Yeah,
Like, okay, are
everybody.
we done
Yes,
yet?
everybody was like done after we got in that room. The word, need I say, rape was mentioned in off the portal at one point during the session in there too, which was not pleasant. It didn't like the females in there.
Wow.
So,
And-
I mean, it wanted to snap Chelsea. So, I mean, I'm not even sure that's what that meant, but it said we got Chelsea's name through, which is my daughter, to snap her.
Right. What does that
What does that mean?
That's scary.
Right.
And it's not like it's unclear. I mean, it's like there's no
Well,
mistaking what it says.
Yeah, it's
And
very clear.
When you get spirits that are acting out aggressively through the portal, saying things, we already don't know who they are, what they are, where they are. And if they can say those terrible things, what can they harm us physically?
Right.
Which, and it's been proven the spirits can harm you.
Yeah. Oh,
They
absolutely.
can cause physical harm
We do put ourselves in danger doing this.
in a sense.
Sure.
I mean, the fact is you're going out talking to things that you cannot see. I mean, there are what we consider safe ways to do this, but there's no
Foolproof.
there's no foolproof way,
Yeah,
right?
there's-
No.
If a spirit wants to deck you, it can. At any point in time, it can hit you.
It
If
may
it has
feel
the
like
energy.
a fly touches
Yeah.
you, or you may go across the room.
Yeah, and that's a challenge, right?
Absolutely.
But generally speaking, the spirits we've come across aren't malevolent,
No. Maybe angry,
ornery.
ornery,
You know,
some to the point of nasty, but physically,
but
It's usually just words.
it's usually words.
Yeah.
But you got to wonder though too, like depending on the spirit that's there, right? And I would guess if you got a spirit that's using more modern day language, it's probably one that's been around
More recently?
more
Yes.
recent. But because of all of the negativity events that happen at Saltair, it's not surprising that it would want to hang out there and then consequently use that language.
Well, and it's a place that has a high energy, especially when shows are going on. You have thousands of people.
That are generally not in their right mind
Yes, generally.
Why?
because they're intoxicated.
Oh,
Most
I
of
Either-
the intoxicated.
on location.
Right.
Yeah.
They're either drunk or they're high or both.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of inebriation that happens.
They're
there.
living life right, whoever they are.
Yeah.
Not really,
The
people.
spirits think
Not
that
really.
too.
The spirits
Yeah.
must think it.
But you also got to wonder too, because they like to be there and they like to be around those things, right? You could also think that the words that they try to use are just trying to intimidate people to get out, to leave, right? Because the first thing it says to get out, right? And you're like, we're not leaving. All right, cool. I'm gonna ratchet this up some more. And what can I say in the most vulgar and impolite way to women to get you to want to leave? Because that's all it does. I mean, the spirit is belligerent only to the women in the room, not to Steve.
No.
Obviously, it clearly wants to try to intimidate what it considers to be the weaker of the group.
Which is interesting because we ask questions about their life, where they're from, how old they are, how they died.
Yes.
Yet a spirit like that remembers and knows I don't like women
Yeah.
Yep.
and acts that out. So it's like, how much do they remember what is carried with them if they can act out to that level.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
think
sure.
a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Because we came across a spirit who died in the time that women were not what we consider equals. And it let us know very avidly that it didn't like women. It did not think women had equal rights, and it did not think that women were equal to men.
Well, and with the energy there, maybe that entity or that spirit was not someone who passed away at that location, but brought in due to the amount of people and energy that is brought into that location.
And that's very possible. We had one spirit that we talked to in our last dowsing rod session up in the VIP room that was, now he claims that he came with Brigham Young across the country and immigrated or helped found the state of Utah. Now, we asked if he had any children. He said no. Now, he had several love interests, but he ended up committing suicide because of a broken heart, is what he claims.
That's what he claims.
Now, why would he be there at Saltair? Well, more than likely, he's there because we were there. Spirits will travel, and they will come and talk to you when they know that you're around and that you're willing to talk.
You're like a beacon, I think. If you've been doing this for a while, I think you're a beacon to some spirits.
Well, and I think, honestly, and I probably said this in the last podcast, I think the devices. Like, I think some spirits get tuned in to specific devices. Because I know for a fact that I've spoken to the same Ed more than once. Mm-hmm. And we thought we had spoken to the same Ed when we were at Graycliff. When actually that was the Ed that was the previous owner of the building, which we're not aware of at the time.
Right.
So but I think same thing can happen like when you're at Saltair. You next time, maybe one of our devices might have gotten tuned to even the rods.
Right.
Gotten, tuned to something that was at Saltair. And I also think that's why maybe necessarily some people might not have seen Sally recently. Maybe the same investigators that she's in tune with haven't been there to look for her as frequently as they may have before.
I mean, connections.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, energy.
Right. Maybe
Familiarity.
Yes,
or portals.
exactly.
Who says portals can't move?
Yeah.
Can't
Right.
be.
So, I mean, I believe she's still there.
Yeah. And maybe the difference is that before she was identified, she was there all the time.
Right. But
And-
everybody was calling out to her Saltair Sally. Maybe she got used to being called that.
Right. But now that they've known who she is and there's no mystery around it, maybe she did move on. Doesn't mean she doesn't come back when people are looking for her.
Right. I mean, we asked about Saltair Sally. We got Nicole through the portal. Said Nicole here. It's on the video.
Her real name.
Which is her real name.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So
you referenced her as Saltair Sally.
we referenced her as Saltair. That's what I mean. We called out to her as Saltair Sally, the girl that was body parts were found or whatever on the side of the road.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when you ask a question like that, and then they may just know from that reference, oh, they're looking for me.
Right.
You go in there and ask for Nicole, maybe she'll know who that is.
Right.
You know?
And I think I remember I think we were talking to your dad at the time, and we asked a question about being in two places at once. And he's like, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I can be in both places at the same time.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that's metaphysically impossible for me to be in two places simultaneously, but not for spirits.
Astral
Right.
projection.
Here's the thing, though. Remember when we had a friend over the other week, and she was stating that a couple spirits were there with her.
Yes.
And she's like, you need to go be with this person. And they're like, yep, we're there too.
Whoa.
So it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense
It does.
where my dad is saying, I can be at two places at once.
Yeah.
And then our friend's story where she,
Imagine the
Told the
level
same.
of consciousness.
yeah.
Well, imagine the fact that when the laws of physics no longer apply,
Right.
because you now aren't on the same plane.
Nope.
Like we can only think of in the terms of which we can see, right? And which we can experience. And so that other level of being is something that's weird to us, to be able to be simultaneously in two places at once.
Right.
Like to us, that's weird. I can't be on the basement and the third floor at the same time. You know, when you're still in the same building, but it's like not possibly on multiple floors at the same time unless you're in pieces.
Which is also something that's weird that happens sometimes because you'll be doing, say, an SB7 session, or even I've had this happen before during an Estes session where you'll be asking, where are you? And they're like somewhere completely different. Like they'll be like, oh, I'm upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But obviously they're not
far enough away to not hear you.
Yeah, obviously they're not just upstairs.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they're upstairs and answering me downstairs. They're not yelling. It's normal tone in my ear, right? So they're upstairs. They're telling you upstairs.
Right.
But you hear it.
But you're hearing it down here, like in the tone that we're talking like right now.
Right.
That you would not be able to hear from upstairs.
Yeah. Which is weird.
Which means they can hear us where we are.
Right.
Because we're not yelling
Yeah.
and screaming. We say, where are you? And they're like, oh, I'm upstairs. So if they're hearing you at normal volume, the person that up on the third floor is not hearing me right now, right?
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
So maybe
Sounds
all
like a
the
superpower.
time they're like
Right.
they're like everywhere all at once. I mean, they say, if you want to get a little bit religious, that spirits are everywhere, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Well, God or whatever, he's everywhere,
Right.
You've
Sees
heard that
all.
your whole life.
Well, and I was going to bring that up in that avenue, right?
So if they say spirits are everywhere, well, they're not just saying spirits are everywhere. A spirit can be everywhere.
everywhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Which would make sense.
wow.
But
Wow.
that gives them the ability to communicate wherever they want.
Yeah.
Whenever they want.
Whenever they want.
We need methods to be able to hear them when they do choose,
Right.
which is where the
Yes.
equipment comes in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why you can leave cameras, recorders, you can leave REM pods, just because the action's happening down here, the REM pod's going off over there. Well, did you just set off that REM pod? They're telling you yes, but they're sitting right here and the REM pod's in a completely different room.
Right. But in the same token, though, like they can move faster than we can in that avenue because we're like, look, that's 40 feet away. I can't run and touch that and come back in any reasonable amount of time.
I'd like to debunk that next time. Josh, you're going to run.
He's going to hurt
And come
himself.
back.
Yeah, I'm going to hurt myself.
But do they even have to run and do that?
No.
Maybe they can be physically right here and right in front of you, and just that wisp of air
Mm-hmm.
from them projects enough energy to set off a device in another room.
And that's entirely possible. Or they can actually move to that location and come back in a very fast period
Very
of time.
fast time, milliseconds.
Exactly.
200, 250, depending on what you set your SB7 at.
Right?
I think the one thing that's removed is physical.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and that's where we get in. It's all very weird in that avenue.
No,
Well, it's fascinating to think of all these possibilities. I mean, we don't have any one answer,
We don't.
you know?
there isn't one answer.
No, it's all theory.
Well, it's not just all
Subjective
theory, it's
as well.
subjective.
Yep.
Everybody's experience is going to be different, and
That's right.
and how the spirits project to you is not going to be the same way they project to her, and that's intentional.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, because they get to choose how they interact with us.
Exactly.
And whether they want to interact with us or not. And that's where and people are like, well, that's weird. It's like, no, it's not weird. It's like if you go into a room of 5 people, right? And you're not vibing with some of the people in the room, you're not going to talk to them.
You don't talk to them the same way that you talk to the
They
other
do
people.
get
No.
frustrated when I ask them, "Are you talking to each other?" And they're like, "Yeah." Like, stay
Like,
out of my
Yeah,
conversation.
exactly. Like we don't.
I'm like, "I can hear you." They're like, "Please stop."
Yeah.
It's like you're eavesdropping. Leave.
Yeah.
This is not for you.
Yeah, and you get that. It's a common thing that I know a lot of people get is you can hear what sounds like two spirits having a conversation or multiple with each other versus you.
Okay, but let me ask you this, and this is going to be a question you're going to have to sit back and think about. Not on this necessarily tonight, but maybe at a later date. Actually, this could be a good topic. Whose time are we in? We go to Saltair in 2022.
Yep.
We investigate and speak to people from what we think is the past. Is it the past? Does time overlap? So what I'm saying is if you have spirits from multiple generations in a place like Saltair and different eras, different words, different languages being used. When I say languages, I mean lingos.
Yes.
Whose time is overlapping? Does time exist when it comes to anything that we're doing? Are they in our time? Do we cross into theirs when we walk across a door threshold? Did we just change time? How does that occur? If we're talking, if two spirits are talking to each other, are they from the same era? Are they from the same time? Or are their times overlapped? How does that work?
How do we even gauge that?
You can't gauge it.
Where would you start?
Well, so we've had some instances where we have talked to spirits and we've asked them what they see, right? Do you see this building as it is today? And sometimes they're like, no, I see it as it was when I passed away.
But other times they're going to see it as it is.
Right. And then we've also had the instance where you can tell that you are talking to two different spirits who are not able to see each other.
Right.
So what, like on different planes?
On different planes.
Or
different times or what?
Exactly.
Right.
That's what I mean. But whose
You're
time?
in the same time, but they're in different times converging with your singular time.
But the time would have to overlap.
Somewhere.
Right.
So what I'm saying is there is no past when it comes to speaking to spirits. There's not necessarily a past because either we just stepped into their world or they're stepping into ours.
Right.
You can't communicate across time.
Right. Well, and I mean, there's obviously the concept of eternity, which is something that one doesn't exist on this side.
No, it doesn't.
Because we are very finite. But when you go to the other side, that other side is eternal. So time stops existing in a sense. But what is their fraction? But here's the thing though, right? And this is something that I don't think we can't perceive at this moment, right? Is there's this concept of like, how long is time on their side in this avenue, right? So if it's an hour to us, does time compress and is only milliseconds to them? Is it minutes to them? Because we have to judge time as something, as a finite, as a solid thing, because we only have the certain amount of time, right? Everything we judge is based upon minutes, seconds, years, decades, millennia, so on and so forth. We judge everything based upon time, but they don't, because they don't.
Right.
Time doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Which is why it's hard to know if we step into theirs or they step into ours. There's no way to know that.
Yeah.
There's no way to know if they're crossing by each other in some sort of vapor, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Where it's like for them, it's just this thin little veil of smoke and they just cross by each other. And then that's why, and when you feel like, for example, up at the cabin, in Jacob City, where I completely felt like I lost time. So like, I felt like I was there for an hour when we were there for 3. So those kind of feelings might occur with spirits where they won't have any idea when they're talking to us. They're like, well, I hear you. Like you can tell they kind of hear you, but they don't.
Right.
and then they ask a question back, which is rare. And I've noticed this. You'll get more answers than questions
Right.
because I don't think they're as curious about us as we are of them because they've already lived us.
I mean,
Right. They've already gotten a chance to see everything.
Right.
I mean, imagine having the veil lifted and you can go and see and do and experience anything.
what's interesting with this time theory is if you think the different forms that spirits portray themselves or that we can see them as, you got the orbs, the lights, the little wispies, the shadows, they look like transparent humans. There's such a huge variety of them. Maybe map it out as times.
That could also be
Yeah.
an effect
Because we evolve.
of their time. Yeah. And maybe
things in this world evolve.
Exactly.
Maybe the spirits and
Do
the
as well.
worlds evolve as well.
I don't
Yeah.
think anything's devolving.
No. But it might be in a sense of evolution in the sense, right? It might be not a full evolution as of changing of things, but it might also be the fact that they're learning as well. Like, because they're going to have to learn how to do and communicate across the line if
Right.
they're going to communicate at all, right? So they're like, I want to be seen. I'm going to do everything I can to be seen. And the best you get is a ball that looks like dust to start. And then you learn, I can do this, and now I can be a mist,
So they're
Or a
growing.
much brighter light, or a larger light, or
right, or a full body apparition, or a shadow figure.
Mhm.
You know, we don't know why we see the variety, right? It's everything from something that looks like dust to a full, solid human being who doesn't exist in the physical sense.
Right.
Because humans, we aren't born adults.
No,
We're old, with 100 years of life when we're born.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, and those are all things that, we can ask the spirits. And we've asked questions and they're like, I'm not going to tell you and I can't tell you.
Please tell us.
Yeah, we've had those. We've had secret. That's a secret.
Yeah.
We hear it all the time. That's a secret. I can't.
Not
tell you
allowed.
about
Why
it. Not
is it a
allowed.
secret? We have to figure it out ourselves.
Well,
Well,
it's
and
because-
I've asked my dad,
yeah, you have.
and he has told me I'm not allowed to tell you. I
Was
can't
your
tell
dad a
you.
Mason?
But
No.
They
what-
have secrets.
I don't doubt it.
but I think there are things that exist beyond the veil that we're not. There are things about death that we're not allowed to know.
Mhm.
Until
Because-
it's our turn.
It will so change the way we view life and eternity that it will completely blow things out of the water in that avenue. I mean, think about religion in this avenue. Is that each religion, right, has their own version of heaven, have their own version at times of hell, right, of eternity, right? They each have their own version of eternity
An afterlife.
and of something in the afterlife, right?
Mhm.
Everyone has that. No one can say definitively, I am correct, right? Everyone has their own faith, their own belief that they are following the right path.
Mhm.
Those who actually know are the ones that are dead, and we can communicate with them, but they can't tell us
certain things.
certain
So
things.
we got to find loopholes.
Good luck.
Figure out what works
What
and
words?
keep searching for other things.
Just nod. Don't answer.
Just nod. Flash the light. You're not saying yes. You're just flashing once for yes or twice for no.
Just got to pick the right question. Just got to pick the right question.
Can I trick the dead?
That should be a video game, Josh.
It should be. I will not write it. We have kept you guys hopefully enthralled for this entire episode. We did get to cover all of our episode and then lots of theoretical tidbits for you guys to chew on for a little bit.
Lots to think about. Yeah.
So we just want to say thank you for enjoying us. And Steve, where can they find you guys?
On all of social media, Broken Wings Paranormal, as well as YouTube. Our videos are on Broken Wings Paranormal on YouTube.
Okay. And Jamie, where can they find us?
You can find us on Facebook at Cold Spot Paranormal Research, as well as Paranormal Peeps Podcast.
And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research. And on Twitter at CPR Paranormal. And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps. We're going to get into some cat meow.
You might as well just wait.
He would like to be a part of this podcast. Hello, everyone. Please meet Gizmo.
He's going to sing the song of his people.
And it goes like, "Meow."
All right, everybody. We have kept you hopefully enthralled for this whole episode.
Giving you hopefully lots to think about.
And we went off topic a little bit there. Went off the rails.
That's when it's fun, though.
Absolutely.
But we covered the entire investigation.
We did.
We did.
We covered all the history.
We covered all the good, juicy, chunky bits.
Yeah.
I would have. Yes.
Might want to rephrase that a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that one over. Don't use chunky bits.
She is bright red. Blushing.
Oh my gosh.
You can tell they still love each other.
So most days.
All days. For me. I can't speak for you.
And I like Susie okay. She's not my wife, but I
No.
like her okay. She's okay.
I'm one of the 4.
I'm one of those. She's the young wife. Young wife.
That's why you have all females on your
I
group.
have
They're
a
all
harem,
wives.
bro.
There you go.
I have a harem. And some of them are already married. Oh my God, you better not leave that in. Well, it doesn't matter because I put it on the investigation
It's gonna be.
that they're all my wives.
It's gonna be cut out.
You'll edit out, yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.